Welcome into 11 Personnel, presented by Monticello Bank. Nick Roush here with Adam Luckett. It's the night before Halloween, which means we're finished with October football. It was not a kind October for the Kentucky Wildcats, who opened the month with a ton of promise, win over a top 10 Ole Miss, and now 3 straight losses. 3 games that were going to define the season. You thought maybe they could win all 3. Well, even if they go 2-1, you can still have a pretty good year. They went over, and now things looking a little bleak entering a trip to Knoxville. Adam Luckett was at the Joe Kraft football training facility today. How were the vibes around the team? Because I can't imagine they're very high. But they can't be any lower than what the rest of us around Big Blue Nation feel.
Yeah, we got trivia going on downstairs as I'm up here in the office, so there's some loud noises going on underneath me, but we'll deal with that. Nick, do you want to go ahead and just get this out of the way and say hello to your good friends from the Volunteer State in the chat? Do you want to just get it out of the way now?
I know you're all there. I see you there, Tinker. I mean, hi everybody. Come on. Bring it on. Whatever you got. Unload the clip. You can really unload it next week, but I would prefer if you unloaded it now because we know what's coming. So just go ahead. Take your swings. Hit the pinata with a stick. Just smack away because you're going to hear us talk about it. We know what's coming too. We're not stupid. Things are a little ugly around here. Things are going pretty well down there. You're playing well in spite of bad quarterback play. Or what should I say, average quarterback play. So you're on your way, Vols. You're on your way. Have your fun. Yuck it up while you can. I hate it here, like it.
Nick, I was in this place last year, and you helped pull me out a little bit. We got to get you out of this. We are entering a very important 2-month stretch for this football program, really starting now to me. And I can't have you like this. Like, you gotta pick yourself up here. We can't have this woe is me.
No, I understand. It's just going to be November is going to be hard because it's like, so what? You know, like we're going to come here and we're going to talk about all of the games and yada yada yada, but like November, for all intents and purposes, like unless they beat Tennessee, it's hard to imagine how, like what really matters is what it looks like in the final game of the season, and you're going into that national signing week and that week off, and then it's like, well, where do we go from here? Because it felt like they could put a Band-Aid. They put a Band-Aid on it last year. I just don't know how they put the Band-Aid on it this year. Because beating a top 10 Louisville is much different than beating a top 10 Tennessee. Like Tennessee, they got pros up there on that front end. Like there are serious mismatches in the trenches, and we saw what happened a week ago when the mismatches weren't as serious. I mean, Auburn's got a good front, but it's not like what we're going to see Saturday, particularly when Kentucky's got the ball. It's not a great proposition to think about what that Tennessee front's going to do to that Kentucky offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough matchup, and we're going to talk about this game, but a lot of the show is going to be more based off just kind of big picture stuff with the program and where we're headed and what's next and all of that. And so we're gonna do a little both, but this is a show for the fans, Nick. For the Kentucky football fans, even though we're going to have a lot more Tennessee fans watching this week than normal. But this is really this show is going to be about, this game, but also about more let's take a step back and just look at everything and then try to project what maybe is going to happen here in the next month. Because I don't know if Joe Casual, Nick, really understands the signing day is December 3rd.
Correct.
It
is 4
we're a month
days
away from signing day.
1 month. It's actually next Wednesday is 1 month. 5 weeks away.
Same.
But yeah.
December 9th, the portal opens. So, we're going to be very much in the off-season mode here soon. We're kind of almost feels like we're there right now. And without a bowl game, it gets it's always important, but we're going to pay more attention to it. We always paid a lot of attention to it, and it's a big period. And I think, there's no matter who's coach, there's Mark Stoops the coach here until he isn't. But even if there is a change, and even if there's not a change, there's a massive, I think, maybe roster overhaul that might be needed, both signing class and in the portal. So it's a really important time in seeing what direction they go and what the messaging, which we're going to get into that, what it is right now, and all of that. And so we got a jam-packed show. We got an injury report coming down the chimney at any point that we'll discuss. I think some notable Kentucky players are going to be on that this week, Nick. So let's get after it.
Well, where would you like to start?
Let's just – I do want to start with these trends. And we'll start with the Kentucky-Tennessee game. We'll end with the Kentucky-Tennessee game.
Okay.
This is going to make Nick feel worse, I have a feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. but they're not surprising numbers though, these ATS trends, because we've lived it. We know what it is.
If you've watched the games, yes.
you know how this goes.
Tennessee is currently a 16.5 point favorite, total of 45.5. That was this afternoon when I haven't looked this evening. That's a projected final score of 31 to 14.5. Nick, this is the highest spread in this series since the mid-2000s. Since Big Phil was walking around the sidelines snitching on people, this is the highest total spread this has been in this series. And you would think, a series without any big spreads, it would be pretty evenly matched. No, you would be wrong. Tennessee, over the last 32 years, which is pretty much my entire life, and I think that's your entire life, Nick. No. Tennessee is 25-7 against the spread. Correct. If you bet Tennessee blind every year in this matchup for 32 seasons, you would have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. That's a heck of a cover percentage there. So 25-7. Some other bad notes. We talked about how important winning home games is and taking care of business when your crowd is into it, specifically when you're supposed to win, like winning the games you're supposed to. Under Heupel, they've not had a ton of success on the road, but they've been cash as a home favorite. Nick, 20-0 outright. Tennessee is as a home favorite. They have not lost as a home favorite under Heupel, and they've covered 14 of those games, 14-6 against the spread. So again, if you're betting this football team with Heupel blind as a home favorite, you're making money. Right.
Yeah.
And then Mark Stoops, the last one, and then I'll let you take over.
Yeah.
9-1 against the spread in this series. So the numbers are not good. That one cover was, of course, the pick six barrage in 2020. So you take out the COVID season, Kentucky is 0-9-1 against the spread under Mark Stoops.
That's pretty bad. And Peak, you're also unmuted there for a second, brother. That has been like really up until this year. You can always do a lot of nitpicking with Mark Stoops, right? But I think that's probably the biggest thing that he hasn't done for this fan base is up until the latest home losing streak was just beat Tennessee. This was the one he got the Florida monkey off their backs. He owned Louisville. But the part that was really disheartening, especially for folks in Eastern Kentucky who got to live with these losers, they've had some of their worst football seasons, and Kentucky hasn't been able to take advantage of it. I mean, the 2018 team was terrible, and Kentucky went out there and laid an egg with their best team of my lifetime. I mean, they laid an absolute egg. 21, things really open up for you, and then you go and get a shootout with them, and then the guy who talks trash to you before the game is the one who has the decisive pick six and ends up winning a shootout. So overall, the series, it's been brutal. Do you have one game in particular, Luckett, that made you hate Tennessee? Because I have one that maybe is a little off the radar, but I feel like everybody has one.
Yeah, to me, the 2007 one was tough, but Kentucky fell in such a big hole, and they kind of were reeling at the end of the year, but you felt like they should have won. We've talked about this, Nick. The maddest I've ever seen that stadium here where I'm at, just a mile away here at KS Bar. was after they lost in 2009. It was they kind of pulled out a good season out of nowhere. They were a win away from going to the Outback Bowl. Things were kind of rolling with Brooks at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to go back and remember when he announced he was retiring. But I think if he wins that game, there was a chance Kentucky maybe gets more money invested and he comes back for 2010. Kentucky team in 2010, I think with Brooks coaching it, had a chance to win the division.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't give the ball to Cobb down on the goal, down when they had it to chance to win the game. That was the maddest I think I've ever seen that stadium walking out. That one was tough. So I would say those two stand out the most. And then there's been other games where you randomly, like Kentucky's like, oh, they could win this one, and then they just can't find a way. I mean, there's been a ton that have played out like that. 2021 one in hindsight was a pretty tough loss. Knocked Kentucky out of the New Year's Six.
Even
kept
19
them from a 10-2 season.
I mean, they were an 8-win team when Bowden can break Daniel Batuli's tackle.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you felt like you were playing with house money at that. But
that was opposite of the 2009 feeling because it was a tough matchup. Tennessee had a really good defense that year. You know, it was the first real defense
had like 30 tackles in that game
that could bow up with Kentucky, and they had the safety. The name I'm forgetting. He was a really good player.
Yeah. Batuli was a linebacker and the safety. I think they had like 40 tackles between the two of them. I mean, they wouldn't let Bowden create explosive plays. They just kind of bottled him up.
So that was that was kind of a 50-50 game. That one doesn't bother me as much. The 2009 one, because I think it had a bigger impact. And it allowed that streak to keep going, and you felt like it was never going to end. And then it's like, really, the next time Tennessee comes to that stadium, that's when you beat them. Like, you couldn't beat them with this team that actually had something to play for. We got to beat them with a 4-7 team.
Yeah.
And so that was, to me, that was the one I think that stung. Because 07-09, I thought you probably, 07, Tennessee had a really good team that year. And you fell in the hole early, but 09 you felt like you had them beat. They weren't having a good year with Kiffin. That one was the one.
07 was the one that got me because it was a cold day, and I to stay warm. I don't know if I didn't bring a hat, but I had like a kid's play like helmet.
All right, Nick, we're up and running, and it is a big list. You want me to read them off to you?
Well, 1 second. Why don't you work on it while I finish my little ditty here?
It is a huge injury report.
Okay.
So just get ready.
Go get to working on the blog. But in 07, I had that little plastic helmet that you would get like a kid. That was my winter hat, and it was cold. It was the last game of the year. That wind was howling, and Rocky Top just kept playing. But you know what? That was the We Believe team. And even though they got down in that hole, we kept believing. And in that game, there was 3 of us rotating for 2 seats in the handicap section that's like front row. And we would kind of take turns on which guys got to sit down there. And I was doing very well while they were playing down there. But my buddies wanted to come down for the game-winning field goal. Well, the usher told me I had to leave and essentially like escorted me out of there as the field goal is getting blocked in the second overtime. And I'm like almost in tears, like, this is your fault. You're the effing reason we're never going to beat them. And I was just devastated. To your point, I never thought we were going to beat them ever again. Like I was firmly convinced that if that team couldn't do it and they couldn't just kick a stupid field goal in overtime to win the game, then Kentucky was just never going to beat them. And oh man, for them to actually do it 4 years later, that's unreal, unbelievable. And to your point, like it should have been unbelievable to see how deep this injury report is, because they've been warning us about how many players are quote unquote banged up. I'll start with the good news first. Good news. Demisu McCarnbay is probable after missing last week. He's Kentucky's most consistent offensive weapon. So you're looking like you're going to get him back. Deion Walker still listed as probable. Not much more good news after that because the ankle injury that J.J. Weaver suffered on the final play, that sack right before halftime, that's going to keep him out for this game. Starting middle linebacker, De'Aaron Jackson, your leading tackler, he's going to miss this game. Starting tight end, Jordan Dingle. I didn't even see him getting hurt. He's out. And then a lot of the guys who have missed multiple games will remain out. Chip Trainum and Maxwell Harrison among them. Sackham Souls, is that a new one?
That
Feels
is,
like a new
yes.
one.
I think he's been battling an injury. I think he got hurt in the Florida game, so he might be battling something. But yeah, he's out.
And for all the Tennessee fans out there that heard Gerald Mincey talking trash in the spring, he will not be suiting up for the Cats on Saturday. They're going to be rolling out redshirt freshman Malachi Wood for the second straight week, which never as bad as it seems, never as good as it seems. I think that's a good way to apply it to Wood, but you just hope that James Pierce and co. don't completely wreck his ascension and wreck his development, completely destroy it. But a very long injury report, while on the other side, Tennessee, fresh off a bye, they only have 5 players on the injury report. So it's a little lopsided in that regard.
You missed Tavian Gadsden, Nick. I don't know if you mentioned that, but he's back. Probable. And Kentucky showed him practicing in one of their highlight picture reels today. So I expect him, I think, to help out at nose tackle and get some snaps in this football game.
Well, they're going to need him because they played an offensive guard and nose tackle last week. So Luckett was like, what's 76 doing that there? Who's 76? House Ramsey. Which, if you're as big as a house, you might as well plug the A gaps. Be that guy. Be that house in the middle of the defense. One other thing, DJ Waller listed as questionable at cornerback. You're feeling pretty thin there. Jansen Dunn is out. So, oh, God.
Ryan Nichols going to get a lot of snaps.
Yeah, you're playing a true freshman a ton, along with a third-year redshirt sophomore in J.Q. Hardaway. Oh, yeah. Peanut Butter Posse's not very confident. Wow, no chance. I didn't know about the injuries. Yeah, that's a lot of injuries. We've got a UK fan who will be playing Tennessee in a parlay. I may have invested some funds before the injury report came out, just in case. Tinker asked, Adam, can you play quarterback for Kentucky this week? They might have a better shot. Hey, hold on now, Tinker. Calm down now, buddy. Calm the hell down. Section 206 says, it's also annoying that Tennessee always scores right out of the gate in this game, too. Foster had that 65-yard touchdown a couple of plays in 07. Oh, yeah, just that's what Josh Heupel has done seemingly every time. There's been a lot of quick scores for Heupel in this game. We'll get to more about Tennessee. They aren't quite what they had been in the past in that regards, but it wouldn't surprise me one single bit. Do you have anything more to add to the injuries before I tell our friends about our fine friends? Our friends about our fine friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not good here, Nick. By my count, you've got, just preseason starters in the spring. Harrison's a starter. Mincy's a starter. Josiah
Weaver.
Hayes is a starter. Chip Trainum is a starter. Jordan Dingle is a starter. De'Aaron Jackson is a starter. J.J. Weaver is a starter. When they added DJ Waller Jr., you thought he would be a starter. It's just a lot, man. And I think you go through this page, and you can do this if you want, but Kentucky, they've got as many. Florida's got a few, but it looks like Kentucky has more. They're the most banged-up team in the conference. It's just really unfortunate how it's going. But, yeah, these injuries are serious, and it doesn't make you feel all that great going into this matchup.
No, you can't feel great. But you might feel great when you step inside a Monticello Bank. It's where people matter. And they've got a bunch of convenient locations across the Commonwealth, 21 to be exact, here to cater to your needs every single day of the week, except Sunday. They're not going to – banks aren't open on Sundays. But Monticello Bank is always open online, bank anywhere with the Go NBC mobile app or by visiting them online at nbcbank.com. Monticello Bank, whatever your banking needs may be, they'll put the numbers on your side to make it work, whether you're financing a home, looking for, maybe like a short-term savings plan with a CD or, high interest rate savings account. Check out Monticello Bank. It's where people matter. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. It's Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 personnel. Whew. Whew. I'm trying to hear some of the trivia in the background, like it.
We're having a good time downstairs.
They are having a good time. Man, that injuries aren't excuses. Nobody wants to hear it. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow. One's got to imagine too the mentally where this team's head's at. I'm fascinated by. You can hear some things, but you can never truly know like what's going on between their ears. And to see all of your guys out that you depend on, particularly defensively, when they have been your rock and things are starting to slip and you need them to like be that rock, but you don't have your 6-year senior in JJ Weaver. You don't have your 3-year starter in De'Aaron Jackson. I mean, it's hard to keep the ship together. So I'm fascinated by just the overall morale and I'm gonna try to not make like that's the part where I want to know what you think, Luckett. Like, how much does their effort, does the locker room matter? Because part of me for this last month, if you think you're gonna have to run it back with Stoops, like they gotta show some pride. Like the players need to show some pride, right? Like to make you think that they're gonna fight for their coach whatsoever at all, that some of them that can run it back want to run it back. And that's the part where I can see the way that the schedule shapes up that it could just, I mean, it's already bad, and I can just envision it really spiraling with just players. We've had some guys quit on the team before, but I think it could get real bad like it. Oh, mute city.
We're back. Welcome back. So what was your what I think the buy-in is, or what were you asking specifically there?
Well, like, does their buy-in for the last month matter? Like, and if it does spiral, does that make it impossible for Stoops to weather the storm? Because we haven't had mass attrition via the portal yet. And like, I don't think you should do certain things just to keep players, but like that could be the sign that like, oh God, because what makes you believe that they're going to get good players from the portal? Like the last 2 years, there's been a lot more misses than home runs.
Yeah, we're gonna get to this, but they need a big portal. They need I think an overhaul in a few areas, and a fresh start, I would say. So you're gonna see a big portal class. Kentucky's an SEC team. They're gonna be an attractive landing spot in the portal. So I wouldn't worry about that.
But that just contradicts what Vince was saying, though. He was kind of like their woes they were blaming on having the wrong portal kids in, and they're not going to try to not lean too heavily into it. So, like,
I mean, we'll see about that. I mean, but they can say that, but if you have a lot of guys leave, you got to replace them. Can't sign 40. What are you going to sign 40 high school kids? You've got 125 scholarships here, Nick, 120, excuse me, to fill. They are going to have a heavy portal class. I don't think there's a way around it. Yeah. So, yeah, they might not want to take a ton, but they're going to have to take some. And specifically, if Bush Hamden is making decisions, which if Mark Stoops is here, and we're going to get to that, he probably will be. But, like, he's going to have, I think, room to go build an offense. So, now, on this kind of the psyche and the mind, like, Deion Walker's got a lot to play for. He hasn't had a great season. He's got 4 games to go put some stuff on tape. Mm-hmm. Like, guys who want to play in the NFL, Pop Dumas Johnson.
Yeah.
It's his last year. He's got to put some good stuff on tape. You've got a quarterback battle now, but like Demi Sumo Karngbe, if he wants a shot at the NFL, it's his last year. He's got to put good stuff on. So I think they're gonna get some buy-in. Those guys are like losing sucks. You don't want to keep losing. So I do think there is gonna be. I think they're gonna have one more moment where they kind of rally the troops, Nick. Now, how long does that last?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do think we're gonna at some point we'll see a good effort from this team, a consistent like 60-minute effort, because there's still stuff to play for, even if the season, by all intents and purposes, feels over again. They were down bad. Last year. I think we all kind of forgot about that. But if you pull just the KSR pre-show heading into Kentucky Louisville, we weren't on it, but the guys on that were talking about like Kentucky had the worst team on earth. Yeah, that was the feeling at that time, and the feeling was like they had lost the locker room. So I think they'll kind of get that back, and we'll see a good effort. Now, again, I'm not going to pick them to win the Tennessee game. I'm not going to pick them to win Texas. I probably won't pick them to win against Louisville, but I think we'll see them put together at least a good, respectable effort or two as we close the season here. So, again, I don't think it's going to – this is not a 2018 Louisville situation. That was a team that quit and wanted no part of playing. Like this.
Yeah, I mean, I want to believe you though, but like it already looks like they've started quitting. I want to believe you, and it makes sense, but the last two games are kind of evidence to the contrary, in my opinion.
My only argument was Louisville they didn't have many guys that had stuff to play for, where I think Kentucky has guys that are the best players.
And that's where like to go back to where we kind of started here with like the mental mindset, that a 4-8 or a 5-7, if it looks like they're trying, then I'll be happy. Like if Brock is it, because that's one thing that I don't want to say frustrated me about the whole Brock Gavin thing, but I've never gotten the sense from that guy that he's not giving 110% or like trying. He's usually just like a half step slow and makes mistakes here and there. Like he's not great, but I feel like you got your best chance to win with him. And if you just kind of stick with him and ride with him, maybe you can get something positive to kind of come from this final 4-game stretch here. But I am admittedly like at the worst sample size because things haven't been good, and then you're staring down the barrel of this bunch of losers in Knoxville, and it's not a good place to be. So, yeah, I'm sorry I might have derailed you a little bit there, but yeah,
we'll get into Vince's messaging here soon, but let's pivot into the QB since you brought it up.
Okay, we'll pivot to the QB.
Let's kind of keep this as blunt as possible.
Okay.
Did you agree with the decision? I didn't, but I'll let you answer.
Only in the sense that, like, you kind of gotta at least try it because you've tried everything at this point. So I think you got to your final thing, and now you just got to do it. I think they were at their wits' end, so I don't really blame them.
Yeah.
The part that I hate about it is that like they still had a chance to win when they did it. Things weren't looking good, but if you put together a drive with Brock, like
I disagreed with the move. My thing is, okay, I got a lot of thoughts on this. First off, if you're gonna make a change, I guess they were looking for a spark in the game. It seemed weird because I didn't think Brock was playing all that bad in that game. He wasn't playing great. So I thought it was just weird. To me, this week is going to be a real test. Like, if you're pulling this card, was it a card that you pulled just to see what it looked like? Or was it a card that you pulled that said, this is what we're riding now? And if that's the lever you're pulling, I don't understand why you wouldn't get through this Tennessee game first and then pull it against Murray State. And let Wimsatt get a full game to kind of like get his settled in and then go see what he has the last two games. So from that, it doesn't make sense. And it's too herky-jerky. Like the Wimsatt stuff, it's just too herky-jerky. They're not even letting Brock play quarterback. He's coming in, he's coming out. And like Gavin Wimsatt's a good athlete, but this is not like he's not Taysom Hill. Like this is not a you've got a freshman Tim Tebow. This is not a Blake Bell, the Belldozer. Like I don't understand. Like it seems like it's not adding much, especially when they're at the ball at like their own 30. I just don't really understand it. And so it gets me to the next point. I've written about this. I've talked about it. I've said a lot. We've discussed it. Like I really like the idea of getting Brock Vandagriff, riding the wave with him in year one, and then seeing what you can do with him in a second season, because that's typically when starting quarterbacks make the next leap. To me, and again, you know, it's hard to know if you're not seeing practice and you're not, you know, I don't get the all-22, so I can't look, but it seems like they're kind of punting on the Vandagriff era right now, and I don't really know why. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense why they are punting on it. And then, as of now, it seems like they're just going to go and get another portal quarterback, Nick. And so we're going to have another year where you don't have OC and QB continuity. Now, to Hamden's defense, he was not here when that decision was made, and he had no part in building this offensive roster. So you do have to kind of, I think, let him go get his guy. But again, it's that churn that you're dealing with on offense that is probably the root cause of most of your issues on that side of the football. Just this constant churn and this constant change of messaging and scheme and who's in charge and who's making the important decisions and what is the flow and what does the rotation look like. That's changing so much. Well, we talked about it. Dane Key has had 3 play callers and 3, let me count. If Wimsatt starts multiple games here moving forward, Dane Key, who has played 3 years, would have had Will Levis, Devin Leary, Gavin Wimsatt, Brock Vandagriff, and 3 offensive coordinators. The 2 most important people for him, and 2 position coaches. So the 3 most important people for him in this organization, he's had like 10 guys, whatever that math is, fill those spots. Like that's not, you cannot build. You know what I'm saying? You cannot build a positive operation out of that. And it's just too much change. It's too much churn. You got to commit eventually. And so we'll see how this season plays out. I don't like the idea of moving away from Vandagriff before we know if he's a true bust or not. We don't know yet.
Yeah. But my thing is I think they're riding with Brock the rest of the year.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. But I disagree with the move then. Why are you putting him in a game like that?
Yeah, that's the part that's weird, is it's almost like I think what they wanted to do, and Stoops has done this before, but it was different. It's
too herky-jerky. Commit. Make a decision. You're only playing 9 possessions. Do not mess,
Yeah. It was different when they played Missouri, and the quarterback was the clear and obvious problem back in 2018, and they were like, all right, you want to see somebody else? Look at them. Are they any better than what we got? No. I almost felt like they were like, well, we'll at least give this guy a shot. But from what I gather, Brock's going to be the guy the rest of the year. They're probably still going to sprinkle on the Wimsatt stuff, but I'm more frustrated that they do any Gavin Wimsatt period, because just it's not none.
I would rather him get a series than do that.
But
if you want to play him, just do what every coach does. Just give him the 3rd series, no matter what. It's in the first half. Well, it's typically before the middle 8. Just give him that series, and that's they could have done it, but they did.
And to your point, they got herky jerky and they changed their plan at the last minute.
Yeah, even then, give him the 4 series. If you don't want to give him the ball because you've got the ball right there, to me, it almost like Brock got, if you kind of watch their 4 series, they get the ball backed up. The first play was like a rollout and an easy throw for Vandagriff. To me, that was the first play for Wimsatt. Like, I think when Hamden charted it out to kind of give him some confidence. Instead, he comes in the second half and they're bombing it down the field. I just, and it's just so, it's so herky-jerky, and he's a good athlete, and he can do some stuff as a runner, but he's not just this, like, he's not Lamar Jackson with the football in his hands where you just got to get it to him. You know what I'm saying? as a runner, I don't know. It's confusing. I don't really know why. It seems like Hamden has no confidence in Brock Vandegrift. It smells like he wants to make a change, and maybe someone's stopping him from doing it. I don't know. It just doesn't make much sense.
Well, none of this offense this year makes much sense at all. So, I mean,
yeah. So we got a QB controversy that I don't think should be a QB controversy. So you say they're ready for Brock, and you're probably right because they ran Brock out to media this week, and if he's not the starter, that would be kind of odd that they would do that.
Exactly. That's why that's a big reason why. But he's gotten a lot of the reps with the ones.
But this is a weird sport. Unless they are trying to play a game on Tennessee, and Tennessee would be gullible enough to fall for something like that, which I don't think they would, which I don't think would really matter who's playing quarterback in this game.
That's the whole point, is to me, if you're going to try to play games with them too, they do the same exact thing. Like, just Brock's better at it. At all of it. Like, Brock gets maybe 3 yards less when he scrambles than Gavin, but like, there's never been a time where I'm just overly blown away by Gavin Wimsatt's ability to run the football. I mean, they talk about how explosive he is, and I'm just like, I don't see it. I don't.
But part of my if they're done with the Vandegrift experiment, you need to just play Wimsatt and see what you got. You know, like, commit to something. Like, that's what just commit to something, and let's play out the string here.
Just go with it.
Stop.
Yeah.
Let's stop I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, I'm going to go. Just stop all that. Play one, and again, just stick to one. Play the freshman running backs. Let them run the ball. They could take on the load. We don't need to see the QB. We've seen 8 games of it, Nick, and it's just not. Not been very fruitful. So let's just run it with the running backs.
Yeah, Kentucky's ranked in the top 10 in success rate, and they just won't just hand the ball off to their running backs. It makes no sense at all. I don't understand it. If you were wondering how many games it would take for Adam Luckett to get sick and tired of this 2 quarterback bullshit, it's 9. We're in game, or is it game 9? What game are we at? Game 8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind the process of it, and I don't mind using it in certain situations. I think it's ridiculous to run him out there on 2nd and 8 from your own 33. It seems silly. And we're still not. We haven't got really a gadget play. The only thing we've gotten out of it is a deep post. Like, it just, I don't know, man. It just doesn't make much sense.
You know what we have gotten, though? We've gotten 5 wide receivers, quarterback draw. They'll never see it coming.
Yeah, but even then, they're trying to. They're trying.
They do it every
time. I get what he's trying to do. I get the thought process of, we cannot block. If Brock doesn't run the ball, that we lose a blocker. We can add an extra blocker with Gavin in there. Maybe it can help our gap scheme run game. But it didn't. You put him in there, and like, he had 0% success rate. They had 7 snaps for 6 yards and a 0% success rate on those 2 possessions in the third quarter. It didn't help. It didn't help them. And so,
and here's the part that
just commit to. I just want to see him commit to something. If you want to play Wimsatt, play him.
Yeah, and to your point about committing, it's going to be bad. Whatever they commit to is going to look bad against Tennessee. Most teams look bad against Tennessee's defense. Bobby Petrino, he figured things out with Bush's old quarterback that he benched, ironically, from Boise State. So, maybe Bush.
Yeah, I think there was I need to look this. I think there was kind of an injury thing there. But yeah,
he got hurt for a while. He didn't play the last 2 possessions of that game. Taven Jackson no, that's the kid at Indiana. Taven.
No, Green? I went last year when Bush.
Yeah. Well, he benched him after the guy got hurt and missed a couple games, and he came back, and they were just like, we're gonna ride the Maddox Marsden hot hand.
Maddox Madsen, yeah.
James Marsden, guy who played in Star Trek, I think. No, that was Chris Pine. I don't know Marsden. He's a pretty boy. You all know him. He smells good. He's in all the chick flicks. Great guy, though. Friend of KSR's Josh Hopkins. So shout out Marsden. If you want to come on the podcast and talk football, by all means. Let's get to the messaging that we were hearing from the coaches earlier this week. I do want to remind folks, if they do want to, you'll be surprised. Neyland Stadium, very big, a lot of seats. When you go on Game Time and you look at all of your different stadiums around the SEC, this is one of the hottest tickets in town, in the conference, not just in town, in the conference. A&M's traveling to South Carolina. You got the cocktail party between Florida and Georgia, but this is the priciest ticket because it's dark mode. They're blacking out Neyland Stadium, and if you want to be a part of that atmosphere, that is one thing like it. I'm going to hate every second of it, but I'm going to find a way to kind of like it because it's going to be a cool atmosphere at Neyland Stadium. You can get in there with our friends at Game Time. Just toggle the switch on the GT picks, and they will get you the best deal, the best value for the best seats. Guaranteed. Game Time is the fastest, most efficient way to get tickets delivered directly to your phone at the best price. And you can see where you're going to sit before you buy. It's very simple. It's the most practical, pragmatic way to get your tickets. So what are you waiting for? Just download the Game Time app. Use promo code KSR, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's promo code KSR at gametime.co, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply at Game Time. Look at that, $2,000 for the front row. Like, this is a tough ticket, man. Everybody wants to be there. Vols, they're playing well right now, and their fans are fired up for this football game.
Yeah, they've got an inside track to the playoff right now, Nick. They got the big Georgia road game, but they should win every other game. So they've got an inside track to 10-2. 10-2 probably gets them in. So good times for the Vols. But I will say this. Kentucky's QB situation, and management has been frustrating, but at least the quarterbacks aren't tapping their helmet to come out of the game in an important division game that was very, very close.
Man, there's
I as putting my fan hat on, Nick, because I don't think you would have known at the time. I probably would have just thought he was hurt.
Yeah.
So, but when you find that out after, as a fan, you got to be outraged. But I can't imagine what the locker room.
Oh,
like really, dude?
See, that's the part that I don't think people comprehend. Like, he quit on his team. Like, there's no quarterbacks don't sub themselves out of the game because they're tired. I've never, ever. I mean,
of course, we're talking about Anthony Richardson for the Colts. If you haven't been on ESPN and been away for a few days,
and I understand people who, especially the like draftniks, they're very upset because they're like, how could you waste a guy with so much talent and just basically say screw it? First and foremost, Shane Steichen has a job, and he might lose it if things go south with this roster that seemingly is one good quarterback away. You know, another team that was one good quarterback away from making the playoffs, the Cleveland Browns, and you know who took them there? Joe Flacco. You know who's on the Colts roster? Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson. I find it hilarious that our pal Jared Stillman in Nashville is. I mean, my man, he can just sit on some bad takes, and he's just like, "Give me Anthony Richardson over Will Levis. We'll trade him straight up right now. Let's do it." I'm like, buddy, hold up the pictures. It's the same picture. Like they're basically the same. It's just Will's played another season. Richardson needs to play to get better, but he's just not going to because he doesn't have it up here. If you're taking yourself out of the game, you are not cut out to play in the National Football League. I don't care how good of an athlete you are. Dumbass. That's what he is. He's a dumbass. I've heard some stuff too, and it's one of those things where, man, you got to really fall in love with the physical tools to just think that guy could ever handle the pressure of being a starter in the National Football League.
Yeah, we'll see him again, and he'll start games, but I think this was more so maybe a move to, like, save the locker room and to probably save that kid from and use it as a lesson and let Flacco – maybe he can go watch Flacco and, like, go see how he is a pro, I guess, and see if they can win some games and make the playoffs. But there's going to be a time where Flacco maybe he's not getting it done, or they need to make a change, and he'll get back in. They've got too much money invested. But just looking at how the Panthers operated too, Nick, like there's just less patience for these quarterbacks now, especially on these rookie deals. If it's not working, these teams are not going to be afraid to pull the plug and go take another swing in the draft.
Bryce Young is one that I'm going to be cheering for at another stop.
Or sign some guy, because it's the position's so important. And from the old format, you don't have all this, like the Sam Bradford, he had all that money guaranteed. You don't really have that when they're on these rookie deals. And so teams are going to be less patient. And I think Quinn Ewers brought this up. He said he looked up that if you weren't a starter for 2 seasons, like the bus rate was super high. And where the bus rate on if you started for at least 2 years, you at least had a yada yada career in the NFL. So Richardson's a case where he only started a season. He just didn't have enough snaps. He needed more. He needed to play more, and I think that's kind of played out. And then even last year in his rookie year, he missed pretty much the whole season. He just hasn't played, and the Colts want to win games, and he's subbing himself out, and that was just wild times.
We have a little more injury news. Curtis Rourke from Indiana expected to play at Michigan State, so it'll be pretty big. They got away with that in a pinch. Indiana, they're pretty good at football. It's very weird to say, but hey, they cashed tickets for me, so I appreciate that. Let's get to what we heard Monday from Vince Marrow, and maybe what we heard a little bit from Bush Hamden and Brad White. They all subbed in for Mark Stoops during his normal Monday speaking engagements. Coach Stoops was laying his mother to rest, so they were up in Youngstown Sunday, Monday, and I thought Vince was put in an unenviable position at that time, and frankly, Vince sometimes, he can be a little over the top, and we like that. But this was not the time for that, and I thought he did a good job of being measured in his statements. I thought he was very measured, and he wanted to convey that, like, I know y'all are hurting, we're hurting too, and damn it, we're gonna fight to make this better for y'all. Like, I know you can't do anything about it, so we're gonna do what we can to make this right. I'm sure there's some people who there's only so much you can listen to. There's only you're just gonna turn it off either way. But I do think he took the right measured approach when he was asked to hype fans up. Like, he wasn't over promising and then under delivering. It was, I know you guys are hurting right now. Like, just try to keep the faith with us, because I believe in this. He said he believed in Bush too, and he did point out that Bush had nothing to do with roster construction, which. I had some dumbasses on Twitter who don't know how the sport works anymore, who were like, "Oh, say that about any new offensive coordinator." Dude, they all get hired in December. Was it February for Bush? Because you did the Liam Cohen thing and he went pro?
Yeah, I believe early February. It was around the Super Bowl again.
Yeah.
After most of the work is done.
Yeah, most of the time OCs are, like, if you're going to make a change at play caller, it's done around
February 10th. Per Google.
Yeah, like that's 2 months later than normal. So at least 6 weeks later. So he was behind. But anyway, back to Vince. What did you think about what he had to say on the coach's show?
Yeah, first things, we haven't heard from Mark yet. Anything on the teleconference worth sharing?
No, he was Brock handled it well, but it was normal teleconference. I'm just trying to get out of here kind of talk. But he said that Brock's handled it well. Wouldn't say one way or another whether Brock would be the starter or not. Just said that he's steady, but it wasn't a very enlightening coach's teleconference.
Yeah, so I think Vince did a good job of reading the room. I think you used the term measured. I think that's a good way to phrase that. I think he did an admirable job. Yeah, in that situation. I'm just going to read a couple quotes here. Just keep supporting and believing. I'm very disappointed in some of these losses. People criticize us. I'm like Stoops, where we're from. We're big boys. We can take the criticism. I feel really bad for our fans, and I'm telling you this, we will get this thing going. I think you'll see some good things coming down the line. Just keep supporting, and you'll start seeing a team that you love playing hard, physical, and playing for the state. I can say this wholeheartedly. We feel the fans. We hear them. I love these fans. They're the best in the country. I think that was I think some fans needed to hear that. So I think that was a good message here by Vince. Now, I don't know if you're going to see the support that you've seen recently. I don't know if season ticket sales maybe are going to be the best, but I think it's probably a good thing that this team's playing on the road here over these 2 of these next 4 weeks, and they got a bye week. So I'm interested to see some of the support. It's only so much online, Nick, but it's going to be very negative on the board Saturday anytime something goes wrong, which is not real life, but it's definitely, I think, an important area. But I do wonder, more casual fans, because I think last year, more I would say hardcore variety were pretty pissed off after that South Carolina game. We're pissed off and we're like, this is not
serious
this is
concerns. Yeah,
this is going in the wrong direction and it needs to be fixed. And then I think they beat Louisville, play Clemson tough, and they just kind of decided to try to run it back and didn't fix some stuff. It seems like, and I think I'm more so pointing out. I think that's what people believe, and that's kind of all of that has popped back up again. And I think, Nick, looking back, I think it was very easy to, especially after they beat Ole Miss, to call that South Carolina game a one-off. They just weren't ready, yada, yada, yada. But that was very alarming. That's where typically under Stoops they play their best, those early SEC games.
Yeah.
And they look like absolute, you know what, on offense.
Hot dog water. Yeah.
They did not have a good plan. They did not adjust well. And defensively, I don't want to say they quit, but it looked like they let go of the rope a little bit in that second half once things started to snowball a little bit. And I think that has come up again here later in the year. The second thing I want to get to with Vince, this is Bush Hamden quote.
Yes.
Let me just say this. This is a quote here. Let me just say this. Bush Hamden is a really sharp young man. We already had our players picked before we hired him. And sometimes as a coordinator, you have to fit to what the personnel is. Just give Bush Hamden some time because he just got in here. We're playing with a lot of guys, a lot of young guys. A lot of guys are banged up, and they're coming back. So okay, first thing I want to point out here, and I'll let you go, Nick. He's right. Bush is coming back, and he needs to come back.
Yeah.
You can't press the reset button. You just gotta bring him back. Now I know there's a lot of Bush talk out here, but this guy had top 30 points per drive offenses at Washington and Boise State. So he's been around good offenses before, and I know a lot of people point to where he's been this or that. He's been around good offenses, so you got to give him some time. And I think the roster building part is, I think that's a fair part to point out, but you do have to adjust to your personnel. But the second big part of this quote to me was the young guys, and they're coming back. So to me, are we going to see a young talent infusion here? We saw Malachi Wood last week. We saw Jason Patterson. We saw Jamarian Wilcox. Do we start to see more of that? Do we start to see Willie Rodriguez or Jordan Dingle out?
Harley Gilmore got his first catch.
Yeah. Harley Gilmore playing a bigger role. Do we start to see
Oh, you got unemployed. Look at. I'm sorry about that. There. You're gonna change your settings there. So here's the thing. I'm fully for that. Right? If it's a lost season, let the young guys cook. Let them go. The problem is they've kind of already been doing that. And I do like the prospects in the future. I've talked about Marquise Davis plenty on this here platform. I think that guy has the potential to just be a badass, as good as we've seen in Kentucky uniform. That's how highly I think of Marquise Davis. And I think the kid from Withrow, too. is a ball player. Quentin Simmons. He's got some juice to him. The issue I have is that a lot of what they need is in the trenches, and that takes even longer. But the part that I fear, and we didn't have that quote because I didn't think it was a very good quote, but at one point he talked about we've got good leaders, we've got good coaches.
Pull it up here. I've got to pull it up here, Nick. You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead and read it. There were good leaders, good coaches.
It's a new era in college football. I give our whole administration and athletic department credit. Here it is right quick. We don't lose guys who are players and contribute. It's the young guys that may think they may not play, especially if there are other young guys ahead of them. We've been pretty good so far because we have a good culture. Guys in the building like being around each other and the coaches, the administration, the cooks, the academic people. Still a long way to go, but the culture is good.
Yeah, there was one.
I don't know if I'm buying that right now.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm really buying it either. And the biggest thing is worrying about, like, how is that talent being developed? Because you have guys who just aren't playing to the standard of expectation. You look at the safety position in particular. Those guys should be better, right? Like that, they just should be better. Jordan Lovett should be a better football player than what he's putting out there on tape. The linebackers have been fine, but like Dane, he's developed. He's done the recruit and develop thing. But can you say that about any of the other guys? I don't know. Like,
yeah, Nick, who's playing at an all SEC level on this football team?
Yeah, he's played well.
Dane. No, who else but Dane? I mean, he's the only, like, who else is playing at an all SEC level but him?
Nobody. I mean,
and we entered the season with 8 or 9 guys we thought could get there. They're just not. They're not reaching expectations.
And like, you've had moments where the defensive line too, where you're like, okay, Keyshawn Silver, that was pretty good. Okay, and then they've kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. Like, just the getting your players to exceed expectations or even play to them, it's been disappointing. It just has. And that's the part where when people say this is the most talented Mark Stoops team, I don't remember. Maybe we said that. I don't remember saying that in the preseason. If you find the clips of me, please send them to me.
Yeah, most talented starting lineup. I mean, they had. I think I said the first 22 is probably or maybe the top 40 is the most talented. I think from top to bottom, just talent-wise, I think you make the argument it's the most talented. I think there were better starting lineups, but I think the first 40 were more talented in the past.
For me, it was always like the defense. But like offensively, you had to take some gambles there. Whereas like production on other Chris Rodriguez, that was like a top 3 rushing season ever. And you were kind of rolling the dice on Chip Trainum. You were rolling the dice that Barry and Brown could figure out how to run routes and be consistent and be steady. And, it just, I'm wanting more. I'm wanting more.
Yeah, I think
from those guys, and that's, and you're going to say that after losses, but like, I mean, how can I not be critical right now? You can't score more than 20 points. Like, like your individual guys, your players, your roster, your recruiting stuff doesn't match your production, your output. Where's the miss? That starts from the top and it falls down from Stoops all the way down to the walk-ons. Like that's just a lack of development. And that was 50% of what this program was built on, recruit and develop. They've been roster building very well. The portal swings happen. I don't know if you caught John Hale's article today, but he did put it pretty plainly just how bad this portal haul has been.
Yeah, it was a good post. Good story.
It was really, I mean, like, the portal players have been bad. And so, like, some of that is just like you're going to miss every once in a while with portal classes. But it's the other guys that I think are even more concerning for me, that you have experienced guys there who aren't maxing out their talent level on the field this fall. And that's I think if we're going to get to big picture issues, that's probably the biggest red flag, red alert worry that I have is that this wasn't supposed to be a down year. This was a team with a roster built with experienced players that have been around. And now you're looking around saying, well, we got to get better from the high school level. And it's like, yeah, these are your high school guys. You know, like I know some of them got hurt, but
Yeah, Vince also talked. We didn't read it, but he also talked like we got to get the right fits in the portal. You know, the recruit and develop model. The recruit and develop model is fine, but that's like it's honestly part of their problem right now. Their roster is like 70% homegrown recruits, guys they signed out of high school, but they're not getting good enough play. Bottom line from that group, and so you're bringing in another high school class. And then, again, I talked about on this board, their hit rate for like quality, or what I would classify as a quality starter. So basically a guy who started for the whole season offensively. They're just not hitting on guys. They're hitting on like 30% on these offensive transfers. You're just not hitting enough. Like, to me, that's how they get it turned around. You know, you find a lot of young guys, you get them ready, you sign them, you play them. Some of these high school recruits you've had, and then you go out and you do a bang-up job in the portal. I think part of their problems on offense is just the churn. Guys are like Tavian Robinson comes here to play for Liam Cohen. He plays for Rich Gangarello.
Quits.
You know,
let him back on.
Gerald Binsey comes here when Zach Yenzer is a coach. He ends up playing for Eric Wolford. Like, I think that's part of the issue. The guys... They're signing guys, coaches are signing guys, and they're not playing for those coaches. Like, that has to change, and which is why Butch Hamden, I think, is safe. But for running it back, like for Mark Stoops and them running it back, what they're doing is just not working. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not working. So that's why it's hard to envision it. Like, how does it get better? And it's just like, oh, we're getting a new quarterback next year. Defense is resetting. Just keep believing in us, keep supporting us. It's just, I think it's harder for when you kind of look at it, like it's harder to buy in to all of that. And that gets us to the beginning of the show. This next 60-day stretch. They have 4 games, Nick, I think, that they can win some fans back if they play well. But they got to go out and play well, and they probably need to win a game. They can get some back. You know, large majority, and especially I think the hardcore fans are probably out, but I think they can get some back to support, to level of support. And I think people are forgetting. They have that, what was it called? The 500 strong?
Yes.
The one Patino gave money to?
Well, he didn't get, I don't think he gave to it, but that's the John Legend Club.
So they have whatever the amount of people that is.
Yeah. It's a good base of money. Think it's like a couple million over a few years.
They have, the way I understand it, I could be wrong, but they've got people committed for $15,000 per year over 3 years minimum. Some are probably committed for more. So they've got, I would assume they wanted to get 500. We don't know, but I would assume they've got a couple hundred in there. That's a big chunk of change. On top of, that's not even including the money these players are going to get from the university with this House versus NCAA revenue sharing. So they have money to spend here. That is probably the big, if you're pointing to one, Adam, what's the good thing? I think they've got some money here. Some players I think are going to come off the books that are high salary cap players. So you got that, but, and there's a big but in this, you got to trust them to go out and get the right fits and do all of that and get the pieces where they can go and have a bounce back year against a home schedule that's going to include Arch Manning in a top 5 roster with Texas, going to include DJ Lagway probably at Florida. It's going to include Lane Kiffin's offense with a Lane Kiffin quarterback who will probably be an NFL player. And it's going to include Josh Heupel and the volleyball player. You're a dog in all those home games. So this home streak could get, it could get worse. And you don't play Louisville at home. You're going to have to go to South Carolina. You're going to have to go to Auburn. You're going to have to go to Vandy, and you're going to have to go. What's the one I'm missing here? Georgia.
Yeah.
You just got to go between the hedges. Blake Kirby Smart. It's a brutal slate next year. And so it could get worse before it gets better. So, like, the deck is stacked against them in a big way right now. And that is the scary part. And so how do they go about fixing it? And again, I think messaging is really important. And I think Vince did a really good job on that show. Yeah. That was the best messaging I think that football program has had in a long time.
Yeah, the showing up and like, I don't have any answers is starting to wear thin with folks. So
I don't know how many times fans, like, the next time Mark Stoops says he just doesn't like he doesn't have the pulse of his team.
Yeah. It's
like they're just losing it over that. And you can't, again, it's very important 2 months, see where we're headed, where we're going, if there's a change, all of that. And it starts now. But in the meantime, if they are gonna proceed and succeed and proceed, like John Calipari once said, one, they got to show some pride and fight, and they got to play hard in these games, and they need to win one of them. And if they don't, it's hard to see how do they come back from a 4-8. Like a 4-8 at the tail end of a 3-year run that was just highly disappointing, with the same issues being the same issues, if we're really being honest. Offense, quarterback play for one reason or another, offensive line, Nick. Is the offensive line in better shape now than it was in 2022?
No.
I think they got some young guys in the program that might be, in 2 years, can form a good line. Like Jalen Farmer, Abbasel, Malachi Wood. Like, you've got at least some younger guys, some pieces to build around. But then again, back then you had, I guess, at that time you had what? Jagger. Burton. Who else? I guess that Jagger was it. So at least you got two more. I mean, that's pretty much it there.
Okay, so better. Slightly, you should feel slightly better.
Yeah.
Now.
But then again, wide receiver play has been an issue the whole time of the Stoops era. And, I don't know what Dan Key's going to do, but I can't imagine him wanting to sign up for another year of what he's just gone through.
Somebody asked if Dane and Berrien would be back. I would wager significant money that they would not be.
And so you're talking about a total rebuild at wide receiver in their high school class. I love Harley Gilmore, but all the recent wide receivers they've signed in this high school class, there's not an instant impact contributor as a freshman, and that's a class that's you're going to need some development. Just put it that way. You're going to have to go out and hit home runs in the portal, which you have not done at that position.
Yeah, you've done very bad at that position. Oh, man. Things aren't looking good.
We're going to talk about all of this moving forward. And Kentucky, I'll say this for you. We didn't get to it. Kentucky's the number one havoc rate on defense, and they keep losing the turnover battle. Make it make sense. If they want to, like we talked about, if they want to actually hang around in one of these games, go win this turnover battle +2 and stop losing these battles and stop winning on +1. They're going to have to win one +2, +3 if they want to go win a game. And again, defense has issues too, but now they need the turnovers even more with how banged up their defensive front is. And that is my TED Talk on the Kentucky football program. See y'all next week.
The Yankees just hit another home run. Judge finally got out of a slump, hit a home run. They're up 5-0. That thing's looks like it's gonna go back to L.A. Well, we got ourselves a series. We didn't talk much about Tennessee because they got a bunch of ass kickers, and the way that Jarquez Hunter ran the ball last week, Dylan Sampson is having quietly one of the best running backs in the SEC in years. Like Derrick Henry level stuff. I could not believe that you could get him at 120 plus yards for plus money because he is averaging that. So there's something for your tickler file. You're not going to have D-Jack there. Feels like they'll be able to do that. So
yeah, and I think for next year, Nick, I honestly like that Afari is getting this run. You get to see where he is.
Yeah,
through 6 quarters of football. against good SEC teams. And Jarquez Hunter, that's the best back in this league. Show me a better back in college football than that guy. Like, put him in. Like, let my Bengals get him in the third round. Like, that guy is a player. But the disappointing part was Auburn's offensive line, which is just fine.
Mm-hmm. Nothing special.
Kind of own Kentucky in the game. Florida's offensive line is better than Auburn's offensive line. I think they have a good offensive line, but not great. Push Kentucky around. That to me is more concerning. It's not that Jarquez Hunter went nuclear. To me, it's that Auburn kind of won the point of attack battle, and they were spread run game, and you're going to see a spread run game this week. And Tennessee offensive line is just fine, but what I saw last week is concerning going into this matchup.
Here's the other part I'm worried about too, Luckett, is they played so poorly against the run, and those safeties might get a little overzealous, and then Nico becomes Peyton Manning throwing deep posts. And yeah, I'm preparing for the Tennessee offense, which has been very bad in first halves. So if you were going to find some sort of scenario where you wanted to play out a potential Kentucky win, it's, hey, they've been outscored 3-0, 7-0 in their last 3 games. They've been terrible offensively in the first half. The issue is like Kentucky was up 10-0 against Auburn. Even when the offense did good things, they couldn't string it together, And that's the issue that I'm just how they consistently score. No idea, because this is the best defense that Tennessee's had in a very long time.
Yeah, since the Fulmer era. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, and Kentucky's they were so worried about the pass, I think, going to the Auburn matchup, that then the run open up. So you worried about if they're gonna pass.
They see all the other way. Yeah.
They've need 5 plays or less 3 games in a row against Kentucky to score a touchdown on the opening drive. I'd honestly, Nick, take the football if I won the toss if I was Mark Stoops. I'm at least not letting you score 2 minutes into this game. Like, we're at least winning that, because they've fallen off. Like, that's really 2 of the games they lost in Kroger Field, the one possession. That's why they lost the game. Fell in the hole early. If they don't fall in that hole, I think they win both those games. And so that's been an issue. And so they need to, especially, is Kentucky like the slump buster for Tennessee's first half issues?
Probably.
Recent history says yes.
Oh, I'm in hell. You got anything else on Tennessee before we get out of here? We've been running a little long tonight.
No, we'll have the scouting report up KSR Plus tomorrow. We talked about it here, but I wrote about how the offensive issues are probably not fixable right now. They need a big portal year there. That's up right now, and we'll have more content on the way. Yeah. Pigskin preview tomorrow, Thursday.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some Breeders' Cup picks for y'all. At least a few. I need to find out if Tennessee is a good for nothing, no gambling state. I would imagine probably.
Yeah, it is. Yes, you get the FanDuel and DraftKings in.
But for horse racing, like some of them are weird. Yeah, like I gotta. Like I've ran into people who were from the state of South Carolina and they couldn't sign up for betting apps because their license was in the state of South Carolina. So, we'll find out. We'll effort it and we'll get it all taken care of. We'll get some.
They don't love your degenerate habits in the Great Palmetto State.
I know you can't do player props there. That's the one. You can't, we got to make all those wagers.
Florida's the same way. It's annoying.
Okay. Tennessee, you can bet through TVG and Twin Spires. There we go.
Yeah. What about you could bet horses through FanDuel too.
I don't know how that works. I don't trust them. It's weird. I'm just I know.
It's fine.
I know.
You can do everything you want to do. I did it this past year for Derby and Oaks.
Well, I don't have any money on FanDuel or DraftKings either way. So.
Well, you're just in a great spot right now.
We're down bad. I'm gonna go pour myself a drink. Appreciate y'all joining us. This was a good conversation, and I think a lot of fans will enjoy our candid rhetoric. Hopefully, it gets better. I don't anticipate it will. I'm ready for nightmares on Rocky Top this Saturday night, 7:45 kickoff on the SEC Network. We'll be there for it all. He's Adam Luckett. I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Kroger.